Last week, I shared 9-ish, I want to say, because I started just having random ideas as I was talking. So around 9 ways that you can quickly get started using AI to simplify your life in your classroom. And I admitted in last week's episode that I am such an AI newbie, and I've honestly been very intimidated by it. And I've even been quick to give up on it. I will be like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I'll log in and I'll try one thing and it doesn't work exactly how I wanted it to. And I get kind of tired going back and forth. And so then I just stop trying for a month. That's the honest truth of my relationship with AI. But as I mentioned last week, my conversations back in the fall with Mitch and Elise in episodes 154 and 157 really motivated me to keep trying. And so that is what I'm doing. I'm sharing my findings in real time with you. So last week, I had 7 original ideas of things I had really tested out myself doing. And then as I was talking, had a couple more I threw in bonus. That's why I say it ended up being 9-ish tips for ways that teachers can use AI to simplify their lives. And then today, I'm going to share with you 7, dare I say ish, in case I come up with other ideas, but 7 ways that I have tested myself that you can train your students to use AI. Now, if you're anything like me, you're constantly on red alert, looking for cheaters in your class. And AI has made you have to permanently be on call for this. But I think something that really challenged me was back in those original conversations with Mitch and Elise, they both had such healthy mentalities and attitudes around AI, much healthier than I do. Both of them follow more of the, if you can't beat them, join them attitudes. And they talked about this idea of your kids are going to find AI and use it, whether you want them to or not. So let's train them to use it productively rather than just trying to ban it altogether. And so again, this is something I've been stewing on for months, and I've been exploring some of their suggestions. And today I'm really excited to share 7 really specific ways you can right now really quickly walk into class tomorrow and say, hey, I'm going to teach you guys one way you can use AI today, and then continue to do that over the next week and give them some strategies that I think will be really helpful. And then we'll also talk in this episode too about the cheating stuff too, because that's a hot topic. All right, let's dive in. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. All right, I want to start off by talking about cheating. Now, I have an entire podcast episode back in episode 94 where I really just kind of share my entire mindset around cheating, how I approach it, how I live with it, how I respond to it. And so you should definitely give that episode a listen. It is a full debrief on all things cheating. Now, that was, though, before AI really ramped up. So AI is not addressed in that episode. So that's why I want to address this here before I get into how you're going to equip your students to use this. The Spark Notes version of episode 94, just for the sake of this current episode's conversation, is that I have just found where there is a will, there is a way. Cheaters are going to cheat. They will find a way to do it. Now, I do not believe we make that easy for them, but I also don't think you need to be killing yourself over the lack of integrity in your students, because I do think at the end of the day, cheating issues are integrity issues, and that is something that needs to be addressed in the home. It needs to be addressed by admin. And then, of course, in your classroom too, but you can't take on that whole burden because you cannot teach a student integrity in the 36 weeks you have them in your classroom, okay, if you see them that much. So I just want to try to relieve that burden from you there. I have found that things that help in general are, one, I don't assign homework at all, period. No homework. I always tell my students, and they always laugh at me, that I assume the worst in you, all of you. I always assume the worst. And then that way I'm just pleasantly surprised all the time that you prove me wrong, And I say that in jest if you're like, wow, you're negative. I say it in jest with them. They laugh. But like, I expect if I'm sending something home, they're going to cheat on it. So I don't assign any homework. Anything that is done outside of school, I try not to grade. If you're like, I have to assign some things or we have to finish some practice, then I would not be collecting a grade on that. Or at the very least, I wouldn't be giving them like 100-point accuracy grade. That just doesn't seem fair. I used to assign projects outside of school all the time. I try to avoid that at all costs in the later years that I was in the classroom. So really avoid work outside of school. If something is outside of school, I wouldn't grade it. So that tries to remove the motivation to cheat, saying, hey, I want you to do this. It's going to help prepare you, but I'm not going to grade you for it because that's just going to further encourage you to cheat. I would encourage them to use AI tools and tech outside of school. And then when we're in school, I'm queen, no tech, no computers, no devices. I don't care if it's a one-to-one school, like we're using paper in my classroom, unless I feel like you have the emotional maturity to handle it. I just think, especially with the majority of my students I taught being 9th graders, 10th graders, dabbling in 8th grade, and then I had a little bit of AP Bio, like those younger students, they can't handle the distractions. Y'all, I can't handle the distractions. Okay? I'm in my mid-30s. I cannot handle the distractions of a computer. Why would I expect these adolescents to be able to? So for me, I'm like, we're not using tech in school because I can't trust you at all. I know there's all these workarounds. And I just think for every workaround that, a district or a school or software company comes up with, there's a student with their own workaround. I'll never forget. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't even say this, but here I go. I'm just going to say it. I taught at a school once and we had this, I'll call it a nude pic epidemic. Okay. It was like nude pictures infiltrated the school. It was this completely out of control situation. They were trying to prove things that were happening. We couldn't prove it. And we finally found out that all these kids had this app on their phones that looked like a calculator. And then all you had to do is type in a certain equation and that unlocked the calculator. I mean, it looked just like a calculator. And it was just this nude gallery galore. It was so depressing. I say all that to say, not to make you feel sad on your way to work, wherever it is you're listening to this, but like, again, they're going to find a way. So that's where I'm like, okay, if you're going to use tech, you're doing it outside my classroom. Because when you're in here, I want to be as in control as I can about you learning authentically. And I can't keep you not distracted on your tech. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of cheating. If you want to hear way more of my thoughts on it, go to episode 94. Now, these other tools, what I'm going to share with you today, these 7 ways that you can have your students use AI, I think is a way to show them like AI is not the enemy, but you also need to have integrity. Here are cool ways you can use these as tools, and you can use these at home to help you learn in my class. So first and foremost is translation. This is probably, one of the only things I might let be used in class, but that would specifically be for my English language learners. So many ways that AI can help with translation. So first, I mentioned last week, Otter AI. This is something where your students that are ELLs, they can record you talking, record their group conversations in lab, record anything. It will create a transcript. You can then translate that transcript into basically any language. And it can also do like a summary points of what was said. I think Otter AI is an excellent tool for students that are, learning English and developing those language skills. Now, another thing they can do just from home, because I just literally said I'm anti-tech in class. Again, I would make exceptions for these students or students who have IEPs, of course, but ChatGPT and Google Translate. So ChatGPT, they can upload a document and have it translate for them. Is it going to be perfect? No, but it's going to be better than me trying to speak Spanglish to them after, the 5 years I took it in middle school and high school and the 4 semesters I took it in college nearly 2 decades ago. It's still going to be better than me. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I don't know how the languages of your students are in your school, but when I taught in public school, of course, we had a ton of English language learners that their native tongue was Spanish, and that gave me some step up with my background. But y'all, we had students speaking so many different languages. It was a very, very diverse school linguistically. And so I can't begin to even help a student. The closest I can help with is Spanish. After that, I got nothing. And so ChatGPT can do so much here. The other thing I recently discovered, and I've been a big fan of Google Translate forever, but recently I realized they have this camera tool now, and you can hover over literally anything. an image, a PDF, a textbook, and the camera will like scan it and do it. I mean, technology is amazing. So that's my first recommendation. You and your students, but your students too, like let's equip them. Let's show them how to use these tools themselves to be translating things. They should absolutely be doing that. Second way your students should be using AI is for study guides and review materials. Now, y'all know I have my students make study guides to prepare and study for tests. And I do think there is learning and reviewing that happens as they're making them. But from day one, I have said, I don't like to put any parameters around the study guide. Some of my students make them very visual. Some, they're very wordy. Some write, some type, some use physical flashcards for the vocab section. Some use Quizlet. Like I've never tried to put parameters on it other than them answering the objectives, doing the practice questions, defining the vocabulary. So why do I care if they use AI as long as they make a study guide that's actually useful for them, that they'll actually use to study for their test? Magic School, I mentioned it last week and I'll link it in the show notes. It's free. Like the basic level has so much in it that you can use. But students can upload the guidelines for the study guide, upload the questions, upload the terms, and Magic School will create a study guide for them. And then from there, have the students tweak it and edit it before they submit it. You know, we talked about last week, the reason most people, myself included, get disappointed with AI is because we want it to do 100% of the work for us. And really, if you go in with the mindset of it can do 80 and I need to do 20 after it to finish it up and tweak it, that's going to be a much healthier mindset and you're going to find more success with it. And we need to train our students with that. They will be at a disservice if they think they can just take AI, use it to write a lab report and turn it in. That's not going to work. And that evaluating level of having them, okay, here's the 80% that AI gave me for this study guide. Now, can I spend 30 minutes making it better and correcting things? That tweaking, that editing, that's the evaluating level. If you look at Bloom's taxonomy, that is higher order thinking, y'all, being able to critique and change. So really, that's a very, very helpful skill to be like honing in them. I'm 100% fine with that, of them making study guides, using AI, and then them taking some time to make sure it's right, maybe add in some pictures, add in some clarifying detail, whatever. I'll tell my students, just like I have learned myself, I don't think AI just yet at the recording of this podcast is very good at science. I've tried to use it for some science things like make me an answer key for this just to save me time. It can't do it very well. It's a great starting point though. So I would encourage them to do that. Kind of following along with that, my third suggestion is concept map and practice sheet creator. Sometimes our students need more reinforcing practice than we're able to give them in class. If you use any of my curricula, you'll know like I really love the engaging and the exploring of the 5 E's. I obviously understand explaining is a necessary evil. So there's of course explaining in all of my units. I love the extensions and all of that, but like the reinforcement of things, the practice problems, all that. I like to do the bare minimum of that elaboration kind of stuff there and know that like, hey, here's what we're going to cover. You know, the majority of you will be fine with practicing Punnett squares, you know, for 2 days, but then you're going to be good to move on. The rest of you, if you need more, that's where we kind of need to step into some outside tutoring. We need to get some extra help. And I love tutoring. It's one of my favorite things to do is meet with students one-on-one and really support them in that way. So sometimes you need more materials for that. And that's where you can really help your students here. They can make some materials. You can too, of course, but show them that they can do it too. And then say, hey, make something, bring it in, and I'll go over it with you in tutoring. So for example, with vocabulary, Magic School has a concept map creator. You can throw in some vocabulary terms. It'll make a concept map for your students. It can also make practice sheets. Your students can do exactly what teachers do. Scan in a practice sheet we did in class. Say, give me 5 more problems like this. And then there they go. They have 5 more balancing chemical reaction problems to work on. So I highly recommend training them to do that. I think also this is really teaching them how to study on their own and be active studiers. Like studying isn't just like reading your study guide over and over. It's a lot of doing. And this is getting them really doing stuff. And so I think that's a really big benefit for them. The fourth thing I think we can train our students to use AI for, which I think is so fun, is another tool in Magic School. Magic School really has a bunch of stuff totally geared towards students. It has a whole teacher side, a whole student side. but it has a song generator tool. So you can put in information and you can select a popular tune or song, and it will create a song to that with the information. And I'm obsessed with this. I was always making up little ditties in class, singing little songs to help them remember things, but I'm just like making them up. And typically they'd be to like nursery rhymes, like things that like everyone knows, row, row your boat type of vibe. But the song generator lets them, it could be anything that they want to listen to. And I just think that's a fun thing. A lot of students learn really well through music, and that would be a cool tool for them to explore, seeing if that helps them study. The fifth thing I love is something I kind of mentioned when I was talking about translation, but is the lecture summaries, using Otter AI to do that. Have your students pull up Otter AI on their phone during tutoring and record your tutoring session. Or when you're doing extra EOC review sessions or AP Bio review sessions, they are using Otter AI to record the entire review, and then they get the transcript and they can ask for the summary and study from that. And then they can plug it into Magic School and get a study guide from the review session. There's so many cool things that they can do there. I'm at the point now, like I'm not walking into a meeting or anything oral like that without recording it and getting a transcript. It's just life-changing. The sixth way I think you should encourage your students to use AI is with proofreading. Upload that lab report, upload that research paper, have it proofread it for you. Helps check on grammar. Like I've heard, I don't have the newest Microsoft Office. I still have like an old one, I'll admit, on my computer that like I downloaded on my computer with the CD before, I'm the last of the computers that could even take a CD type of vibe. And I've heard that the newest Microsoft Office even has much better proofreading because it utilizes AI in the proofreading. But even like this Magic School and stuff will do that for your students if they don't have Office. And I think that's an excellent use for it. Say, hey, you write the paper, you do this, and then ask it. Say, hey, can you give me feedback? Or, hey, here's the lab report I wrote. I'm going to also upload the rubric that my teacher gave me. Can you provide me feedback so that I can make this better? What an awesome way that they could use AI and still be, creating authentic work there. And lastly, related to papers and projects is having AI make a research outline for your students. I think sometimes our students get really overwhelmed by projects, especially research-based projects where they just don't really know where to begin. So first and foremost, they can upload a prompt or a product description into ChatGPT and have it generate ideas, like research project ideas, research questions, things like that, which is awesome. You can also upload a rubric too and say, hey, here's the guidelines, here's the description, here's what I'm going to be graded on. Can you make me a research outline for what I need to research to do my project on, trisomy 18? And have it give you an outline, and then that's something then they can fill in. That's something I used to make from hand for my students with accommodations. Now I can do it on AI for them, or I can equip them to learn how to do that for themselves. I think that's a skill that's going to serve them for years to come. So 7 ways that your students can use AI, and you can equip them to do that, train them, give them permission to. Translation, study guides, concept maps, and extra practice creation, song generation, lecture summaries, proofreading, and creating research outlines. So here is your challenge today. Teach one of your students one of these methods and let me know how it goes. I guarantee there's someone in your class that could teach you even more about AI. And maybe that's a way where you can learn some new ideas and let me know about them. So if you have any feedback as you're testing these things out or trying things or learning new stuff yourself, shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's Not Rocket Science on Instagram with little dots between it. So it's.not.rocket.science. You can search Rebecca Joyner, It's Not Rocket Science too, and that should also come up. But search for me, message me, let me know. I would love to hear from you and how it's going in your classroom. And if you have good ideas too, especially as we continue this conversation. For the sake of not, boring people with the AI talk, we're going to keep moving on to some new content in future episodes. But I'm going to be coming back to this at least one more time this school year and at least once a year for here to come. So I would love to bring in more guests to talk about it. So reach out and let me know. And you can find links to those original 2 episodes on AI, as well as all the different tools I mentioned. Those are all in the show notes at itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 174. And so I would love it if you haven't left a review for the podcast yet, leave a 5-star rating and write a review, just sharing, especially if you're motivated now because you're feeling less scared about using AI after these last 2 episodes. I would love to hear from you. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.